ethnically diverse professionals. My goal is to move other people up to the top of the firm and figure out how to pay it forward. So it's not just me and a handful of others. And so just know that that's my commitment and that's what I'm focused on. And I will continue to focus on that for as long as I have influential and sort of power at the top of the firm. And so as Clayton mentioned, I do a lot of work in artificial intelligence. I started my career out more so in the data analytics space. And then as you started to hear more about robotics and machine learning, which have been more recent terms that you've heard lately in the public domain, my clients have had an appetite for wanting to migrate in that space. And so I help my clients understand their readiness for bringing artificial intelligence into their space, as well as I help them adopt the use of AI. So whether that's, like I said, machine learning or process robotics, process automation, that's what I focus on helping them with. As Clayton mentioned, I do have a passion and I have a number of roles in Deloitte that focuses on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And one particular area that I'm most passionate about is the way we recruit, the way we develop, and the way we advance our diverse professionals and women. I'm a woman in the STEM field, and so it's important that I continue to bring other women up in that field. Sometimes women struggle when they have a technical background. They sometimes don't quite know where their career is going to go and how they can fit in. And so my goal is to be the STEM ambassador that kind of helps create that path to the higher ranks in the firm. Clayton mentioned that I am a mathematician. I'm also a professor at the college level and focus on educating, rising STEM talent. And I'm really an ambassador around STEM in the community. One particular area that I like to focus on a lot is bridging sort of the digital divide in underserved communities. So right now, Lene and myself, as an example, are working with United Way. And I believe that a lot of our students in the grade school level don't get a lot of exposure to a lot of the artificial intelligence concepts and emerging technologies. And so our goal is to take those concepts into those communities. And so we have a mentoring program every week where we mentor 8th grade students across the Washington, Virginia, Maryland area. And we are helping them understand, how do you use robotics? How do you build a bot? How do you use machine learning? All types of cool stuff. It's very interactive and we love it, but that's sort of our way of giving back in the community. And I sponsor and lead a lot of those community efforts because I don't want any of our kids to be left behind. And so that's another passion of mine. We do have a Deloitte Artificial Intelligence Institute. If you've not seen it, you can go Google it, it's out there. I serve on that leadership team, and the goal there again is to sort of bring the experts' points of views and thought leadership from outside of the firm into the public domain. So whether I write a paper around how to use artificial intelligence to solve DEI problems, I'll put that out in the public, and that's coming from our Artificial Intelligence Institute. Recently, given the heightened crisis in the community, in the Black community, we set up a Black Action Council, and I serve as one of the 12 partners on that council that reports to our CEO and our board chair, which is a pretty big deal because it's a hard task that we have to undertake, but it's important that we focus on advancing Black communities. But more importantly, we also have to do that within the firm. I can't fix things in the community and not focus on what's not working in our organization for our own Black people. And so we're focused on advancing the Black experience for our own professionals in the firm. And when you see things in the community, you kind of think, am I actually feeling and being treated and experiencing some things in the firm in corporate America where it may quite not feel right? How do we actually address that is something that I'm focused on and I lead for the firm. And so we umbrella that under all of the work that we do with our Black Action Council. And then the other thing that you might have figured out, just given my passion for HBCUs, as Clayton mentioned, I certainly lead all of the work on behalf of all of Deloitte for the way we strategically engage with all of the HBCUs. And so I am the leader of the firm around the way we engage, whether it's recruiting, whether it's giving scholarships, donations, whether I'm setting up a mentoring program, whether I'm inviting people like Clayton and other leaders of faculty and deans to the stage to do panel discussions, whether I'm focused on our alumni population and what that looks like at Deloitte, whether it's some sort of contracting opportunity where we go out in the market and we do work together and we team, I'm helping lead a lot of that. Like pulling all that together so that we sort of show up as one firm to the public. So I'm leading a lot of that work around HBCU strategic engagement at Deloitte. And then as Clayton mentioned, I did graduate from North Carolina Central University with a bachelor's and a master's degree in mathematics. He failed to mention, and maybe he did it on purpose, but I do have an MBA from Howard University as well, in addition to the work that I've done with artificial intelligence at Berkeley. So I didn't want to forget my other HBCU. So let me talk a little bit about my journey. I started with Deloitte in 2005. And coming in the firm, I was already faced with some very tough situations, just walking in the door from day one. You see, I was trying to balance being a young single mother and a career. So I actually had a baby very early. So when I was in college, I couldn't really enjoy myself the way I probably should have been enjoying myself as a college student because, you know, and I'll tell you guys the same way I told my mom when I called her at home. I was like, you know what? Somehow I ended up pregnant. I don't know how it happened, but I definitely am pregnant. And I thought she was going to say, you need to come home because that is not why I sent you to the school. And I was, you know, I lived in Washington, D.C., so I was, 4 or 5 hours away from home. And instead, she was like, well, we're going to support you. You're going to stay in school. The family's going to rally around you. We're going to support you. We need you to graduate because, you see, I was going to be the first person to graduate from college in my family. So it was like super important that I did that because I had a lot of people dependent on me. And my mother couldn't understand how I managed to get pregnant when I went to school, but that's what happened. And so coming into the firm, I had to figure out, well, how do I be this young mother and balance, navigate corporate America when I've never been in corporate America before? My family doesn't know anything about corporate America. My parents barely graduated from high school. I was a first generation college graduate. There was just a lot I needed to learn and had no clue what I was doing. But I got into Deloitte and I was like, might as well make the best of it. So I did. And one thing that I always was very good at was working really hard. My mom always said hard work pays off. And so that's how I just sort of navigated myself through my career. I remember as I was going through my career, someone told me about the importance of networking. And I told them that I wasn't interested in that topic. I didn't think that topic meant anything to me. And I'm an introvert. So I was like, I'm not going to talk to other people. I'm just going to do my work because my mother said hard work pays off. I don't have time to build relationships with other people because I don't know how to do it and I'm very uncomfortable. But I quickly learned that the concept of networking is so powerful. I don't know if you've ever heard people say your network equates to your net worth. And I did not understand that. But you see, I started to realize quickly that that was important in order for me to make connections and to move up into the organization. And the only way I was going to start to get exposed to other opportunities was to start connecting with people so that they knew exactly who I was, what I was interested in what I was interested in, what I was really good at, and what I wasn't good at, but what I wanted to learn. And so they could help me capitalize on all types of opportunities. But if they didn't know me and I didn't network, then it didn't make, I just would have kind of stayed in the same position that I was in. So I started to try to figure out, well, how do I best do that? And the one thing that I think helped me was the fact that I was always a confident person. I really think that that came from me being a mother at such a young age, because I was very vocal about being a mother and needing the time and flexibility to take care of my son while I was also doing my work. And I think because I was so confident and I could candidly talk about non-negotiables when it came to my child, I think that led to a lot of opportunities where I was able to sort of articulate what I wanted and I could confidently do that. And I was a mother at a pretty young age, so I just had to, step up into that sort of adult life and speak that way. And I will say my leadership at Deloitte was always supportive. Sometimes you may work with people that just don't understand why you have kids and you're single. Some people associate, well, if you have a baby, you should be married, and no one understood. Like a lot of people just didn't understand that because I wasn't married and I had a baby. And so I had to deal with the judgment, that people may have sort of passed, my way because that's how I showed up, but I didn't really care. I was more focused on how can I make, a successful career for both me and my son. So it kind of all worked out where it was just like, you just need to own it and keep pushing forward. And so that was sort of the confident person in me. Now, as I progressed through my career, it was quickly recognized that I was a very high performer in the firm. I was very good at delivering data analytics. Technically, I was good at computer programming. I did so well that I relied on all the great work that I did to get from what we call a consultant level to the senior manager level. And then the next level was a partnership. And I remember I would always get feedback and people would say, yeah, she's doing great, but we don't understand her executive presence. And I had no idea what they were talking about. I was like, what are these people talking about? I work hard. Remember the networking conversation I just told you guys about? It just didn't matter to me. I was like, I work hard. And I remember one day a partner calling me into his office and he said, you know, what's your destination? Like, where do you want to go in Deloitte? And I looked at him and said, well, I want to be a partner. So I'm confused as to why you don't know that. And he was like, well, everybody recognizes you're a hard worker, but you don't really have a strong network. You don't really get the exposure that you need. You're not really present when it comes to meetings. You just kind of keep your head down and work hard. And that's not going to get you to the leadership ranks. And that was a wake up call for me because I was thinking, boy, oh boy, am I behind. I should have been figured this out. And unfortunately, you know, some of us come into corporate America and depending on what schools we come from, we got a network waiting for us all day and they'll teach us tips and tricks on how to navigate corporate America. You know, I'm coming from an HBCU. People don't know the name of the school. You know, they barely, heard of it. And so no one's teaching me sort of the inside tips and tricks, right? I'm just literally learning along the way and come to find out I was doing a lot wrong. I was, of course you need to work hard, but there's a lot more that comes with trying to move up in an organization. And so we talked about it. We talked about what it meant to be present. We talked about what executive presence meant in general. We talked about what it meant to assert myself in meetings at the right time so that others knew that I brought a point of view to the table. We talked about how to effectively communicate with others. And so I had to make a shift from not only focusing on hard work, but my executive presence needed to be worked on. But what I did find was when I mastered this, or tried to, because I will caveat and say, it's very hard to master executive presence. You will mess up at some point. But when I did do it right, and I had plenty of examples when I mastered it and I did it right in certain scenarios, this is what I found. I found that I had many advocates that were in my corner. Many mentors came my way. I got exposed to so many more opportunities. People saw that I had presence, that I had influence, that I had power in the room, that I had a point of view. They saw I was a valuable asset to the firm. They understood my brand, and they understood that, I wanted to be in the leadership ranks, and there were no questions about that. They knew it. But that was very hard to change because it just wasn't Tasha. Like I said, I was an introvert, but I worked really hard and I had sponsors that really helped me get through that. And it really provided me the opportunity to take on a lot more leadership roles. So I explained all those roles that I had in the firm earlier to say they're great, but it was a journey to get into all of those leadership roles that I mentioned. And to be able to align with folks like our CEO and work with them, day in, day out, work with the chair of the board, those aren't opportunities you get every day. When you show up and people see it, you never know what opportunity might come your way. And those were the types of opportunities that came my way when I showed up well. So all that to say now, well, what does executive presence mean? People always say, well, what does that mean? So I figured I'd talk a little bit about what does it mean to be executively present? People have said, well, do you have to change your executive presence as you take on new roles? And you absolutely do. And I'll explain and give you some examples of what I mean when I say that. So my executive presence may be different as a partner at Deloitte than as a teacher in the classroom, than as a STEM ambassador in the community when I'm talking to grade school students. What does that really mean? I got to meet them where they are and show up in a way that's going to resonate and still help me drive influence. People have asked, well, how do you prepare for important interactions to ensure your passion comes through? People have asked me, what does it mean to be present? How has executive presence enabled your success? And people have asked me sort of what ways do I feel that I've most inspired others to be their best? So we're going to talk about that. And that's all really under the umbrella of executive presence. So we'll start with the first one around what is executive presence. I would sum it up this way, and then I would love for you all to come off mute and tell me if there are other things that you think you would add to the conversation around what you think executive presence is, or if you need clarification on something that I said, let's talk about that as we sort of navigate the first question. So what's executive presence? To me, it is communicating and presenting with confidence and clarity, and doing it in a way that allows me to connect and collaborate with others. That's what it is. It's communicating and presenting with confidence and clarity, and doing this in a way that allows me to connect and collaborate with others. It also means that I'm understanding my audience and I'm carrying myself in a way that commands attention in a very positive manner. It means balancing, being authentic, as well as being passionate with emotional intelligence. The reason why that one's important is because you all know that sometimes people will say and do stuff to us and we'll turn into a totally different actor. And we got to be careful with that, right? And figure out how we keep our composure during good conversations, during the not so good conversations. We got to show up, got to. And we got to do it in a way where people are comfortable talking to us about anything, good or bad. And it's sometimes the way you react to things that makes people think about whether they want to say something else to you or not, or even want to be aligned to you or not. So emotional intelligence is very important when it comes to executive presence. Executive presence also means showing up and dressing for a more powerful and impactful presence, and really also being just present. It's also about the ability to authentically connect with others, to inspire others, and most importantly, to influence them to act. And really, executive presence is all about being a leader that others want to follow, a leader that others wants to follow. And everything that I've mentioned and other factors, they do play a critical role in helping achieve sort of this objective around executive presence. So I'm going to pause there, and guess what? I can like summarize this and send it to you guys so you have it on your cheat sheet. If you didn't catch all of that, I'm happy to repeat something, but anyone else have any reactions to that? Does that sound right? You know, are you confused? You know, do you have something else you want to add to that?
It sounds like being a boss to me. Like, it sounds like just walking into the room and being like, I got this.
That's a great observation. That's exactly how I think when I got to go in a room and present. Yep.
Sounds like a big part of it also is like being able to kind of extend your confidence or your energy to other people in the room or the room itself.
Absolutely. I mean, there are times when I'm sitting in rooms and I see somebody's executive presence it comes through so well. I'm like, man, I want to get to know that person. I want to be like that person. I want to show up like that person. And I'm sure we've all seen someone in the public figure where we feel like, God, it'd be great to have that executive presence. I think about Michelle Obama. I've met her 3 times working, you know, while I've been working at Deloitte. And every time I see her, I'm telling you guys, I kind of like freeze up because I'm like, oh my God, I just want to be her. So, but it's her executive presence that comes through. And it's been other people, but that I've noticed that. And I'm like, I just want to be them. But great point. Any other feedback?
I think it's knowing like what you bring to the table and like your value.
That's right. That's right. Knowing what you bring to the table, knowing when to assert yourself, knowing your value, letting your brand come through. Very good. Any other thoughts?
I would say making sure that you're in the moment, because a lot of stuff can be happening all at once or just at home. But once you step on, you're on.
That's right. Being present, knowing where you are at that point in time, making sure you know where to meet people, where they are on that given day, and just making sure you sort, like I said, read the audience and make sure you understand how you're showing up. Just like I'm reading you all, I can tell this is an interactive group of people. So me talking to you for an hour is not going to work. It might work in another situation, but I have to be mindful that I have college students on the call. They don't care about me talking. You guys don't care about me talking for about an hour. You want to get your voice out there. So I have to read, understand that, and pause and say, let me let them speak. Any other thoughts?
I definitely feel like, because you were saying like you're an introvert, and I feel that like I get very nervous when I walk into a room full of people. So I really connect with that. And I guess like stepping outside of the box kind of goes into executive presence, like doing things that make you uncomfortable, but at the end of the day, it will get you to where you want to be.
Oh my gosh, that's so important. I always tell people they need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because if you just go with the flow and go with what you're comfortable in, it's going to be very difficult for you to grow. And so you got to take risk and you got to be okay with that. And that kind of ties back to the confidence part of executive presence. Thank you for that. Anything else? Okay, so let's go to the next question, which is, people have said, well, when you take on different roles, how does executive presence change? And so, when I was in the firm as a consultant and, I was talking to folks around, how do you code this program? How do you do this? How do you do that? It's very technical, right? So I knew how to understand that audience and talk tech with them. If I show up in, a senior leadership meeting, for example, that might be different, right? I might need to come in with a broader perspective, take it a level up, not so much talk technical, but talk in a way where the audience understands me. And so I always tell people that you need to be mindful and you need to check in how you're being perceived. But most importantly, you need to understand that when your role shifts, you need to shift with it. I think about it all the time. When I'm about to go to a meeting, I'm like, okay, what's this audience? Like, who is this audience? And what would they best benefit from what I have to say? Is it really technical? Is it more strategic? Is it just listening? Because sometimes executive presence is just about listening. I'll give you an example. In the height of the crisis, and you guys know we still got issues in the Black community. I was watching the news this morning. We got some major issues. What happens is everything that goes wrong in the community somehow impacts our folks in our organization. It does, and it impacts them in different ways. So somehow they get impacted in some way. Some of them are sad, some of them are hurt, some of them are disappointed, some of them are mad about the things they see on TV. The best way I could support the group of people in the firm that are going through this is to just listen. I don't need to come in and offer a point of view. I don't need to come in and try to make them feel better. If I can, that's great. But the first thing that I'm doing is coming in and I'm saying, how are you doing today? I'm here for you if you want to vent. I understand that you might be upset. How can I meet you where you are? I just want to listen and make sure you're good. Because the problem is, if I don't hear them out, I can't expect them to be okay with just working. There are too many things happening in the community. For me not to acknowledge it, shame on me as a leader. So I need to show up and listen and make sure there's nothing that they want to share with me about their feelings, as opposed to coming and making it seem like it's all about work. And I hope that makes sense, because executive presence is sometimes just about listening to people. As a professor in this virtual space, my executive presence would show up when I would go into the classroom. But I know you all are all about the text messages that, whatever way you can get quickly in the digital space, that's how you guys operate best. And so when I'm not physically in the classroom, given we're in a COVID era, I now have to really show up in email. I let a lot of my students text me, but I got to be on it, right? When they're texting me, it's a different way that I'm communicating with them. Certainly not my preferred way. Like, I like to be physically in front of my class and everything. So my executive presence has had to shift where it's actually coming through digital, right? The words I say matter. The timely responses matter. That's executive presence as well. I need to be present for my students, and I need to be able to do it in a way where they're communicating a lot different than if I was one-on-one in class with them. So that shifts as well. In a community, I'm dealing with a lot of grade school students. They don't understand half the stuff I just told you guys about me. They understand some other basic terms. And so I got to meet them where they are and talk to them a lot different, while still letting them know that I'm sort of the leader in charge, and I want to influence them to learn more about things like artificial intelligence, et cetera. So I got to influence them, but I might have to talk to them a little different than the way I'm talking to you all. So that's what I mean when I say your executive presence sort of has to shift with your role, and you got to, again, know your audience. Anything you all want to add to that? Does that make sense?
It's definitely making sense. I'm here right with you, sis.
All right. Something that people always ask is, when you have to go to a meeting, how do you make sure you are showing up, you are prepared for the meeting, you know where to assert yourself in a meeting? What if it's a difficult meeting? How do you actually make sure your executive presence, how do you make sure your passion, how do you make sure all of that comes through? My simple answer is I have a trusted circle of advisors, both within Deloitte and outside of Deloitte. I have girlfriends that I look at as executive coaches. I have people and leaders in the organization that I look at as a trusted circle of sponsors and advisors. And for me, I can tell you when I'm going into complicated meetings or just meetings where I feel like I'm about to be around a bunch of senior leaders and I better have a good perspective to offer. I better have some good questions to ask. I better be able to offer a point of view that's going to resonate with them, or I better be able to influence them to act. I actually go and prep with some of these other leaders that I know how to do it very well. And I trust them because I know they're going to give me everything I need to walk in that room and be successful. And so I lean on them a lot. I don't act like I know what I'm doing. And when it's that complicated, I don't walk into a situation cold. I sometimes will get on the phone with my girlfriends that I trust that have done this before and say, does this sound right? If I'm going to speak to this audience, does this feel right? I might practice sort of my opening line to them in a meeting or practice a question I may ask. I may ask people to give me a good question that I should think about or help me understand this audience and what type of perspectives they look for. So I'm constantly preparing because I don't claim to be perfect in this arena at all. So I got to prepare. And remember, you guys know I didn't come from this world, not in my upbringing. So I got to continue to prepare. I don't have parents that I can turn to and say, I remember telling my mom all the stuff that I was doing with work one day, and she was just looking at me like, what are you talking about? And so, she understands, that I've done well, but sometimes, my family, they just don't understand. And so I have to lean on people that do understand, and I have to get that coaching. And I'm okay with that because it just makes me more successful. I'm not embarrassed by it. And luckily, the trusted circle of folks that I have, I trust them enough where they'll protect me and make sure that I'm good. So you got to look for that. Sometimes you'll hear people refer to it as board of advisors, but I just say trusted circle of advisors, a good network. And so try to find people to put in that network that have sort of walked the walk in corporate America or in whatever spaces you are aligned to and you need support in. Try to, align the folks that have done very well in their college journeys, if that's what you need, to see how they've entered into corporate America and how they've done it successfully. I try to do that at every level, no matter where I'm going. Who are the right people that I need to surround me so that I can be successful? We talked a little bit about being present before, but I will tell you, when someone says you need to be present, that means that, you need to be aware of what's going on. You need to know what's going on with you. You need to understand what's going on with others. You need to be curious. You need to be open, and you need to be flexible to deal with whatever a situation may bring you. Being able to shift from reactive reflexes to responsive and being creative with your choices. And I'm going to say that again because it's so important. You have to understand what it means to be reactive versus responsive. I think when someone does something that we don't agree with, we immediately react. But I'm telling you, it's the response that's better. And so I may enter a difficult conversation, and I have at work, where I just didn't agree with something and I just want to explode. And instead of me reacting, and I know it's not the right time, I literally will say, okay, I'm good with that. I'm gonna go home, I'm gonna sleep on it. I may come back 1 day, 2 days later. I may even have to sleep on it for the weekend because it was just that bad. But I always go back, and I remember doing this. I remember getting a year-end rating that I totally did not agree with. I thought it was the most unfair thing. And our ratings were like exceptional, above expectations, meet expectations. I think I got above expectations, and you guys know me, I'm going for the top because the only thing they can do is knock me down from that point, right? So I'm always going in for the top. And so when I did that, they didn't agree. And I literally had to pull out like everything that I did to sort of, convince them that I really belonged in the exceptional bucket, they still didn't agree. And I was not happy. And I remember going home, talking to my husband about it, and I was like, I'm gonna sleep on it. And I remember 3 days later, I wrote my leadership back and I said, I'm ready to meet again because I respectfully disagree with the conversation we had last week. I want to better understand how we landed there. That way I know what I need to go back and do so I can do it better. But I had time to think about it because I will tell you, at the moment I heard that, I was like, I just want to tell them that I don't agree. They are fair. I don't, I'm mad. I'm not working for them. Like, you just get those emotions and you're like, yeah, that probably didn't come out right. So, and you'll regret it later. I'm telling you, you will. And so I've had to learn how to not, react to something and rather just, take a breath and respond. And so I would highly encourage you guys to do that. Has anybody ever felt that they were like in a difficult situation? And I will also say, there have been times when I reacted and I'm like, man, I messed up. That was not the right executive presence. I need to go back and deal with that again. But have you guys ever sort of felt that pressure where you're like, I just want to emotionally respond? Because that's what it's based on, your emotions, and you haven't taken time. Any feedback there?
Yeah, for sure.
I definitely have dealt with that before. I came from corporate America before I came to higher ed. I was at Macy's in corporate America and in Target. So I understand about reactive versus responsive and making sure you think before you react because your reaction is not always what needs to be there. And you always want to make sure in your executive presence that you're leaving a good taste in people's mouths because you never know where you're going to meet them again. They could leave that company and then you're trying to get into another company and they're right there, or they know a person that works for that company. So just be careful about that.
And it doesn't take long for us to damage our reputation. You could do everything right for years, and it just takes that one time that you've messed up in front of the one person that held the power, and you've missed an opportunity because of the way you showed up that day. So it's, like I said, it's hard. Sometimes I know it, but if you just sort of think about, okay, let me respond. I'm not going to react. I'm going to take a break. I literally have to do that a lot. And the more you practice it, the better off you'll be. Any other feedback there? Questions for clarification? Any other things you want to add to that?
I like that. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. You go ahead.
I was going to say, I like that you mentioned that because I tell people that all the time, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And, you want to, treat people the way you want to be treated, regardless if you dis or dislike somebody. But respect is, respect should be all around. If you can only control what you can control. So exactly. I like that you said that.
Well said. Exactly. I'm sorry, Clayton, as well. Did you have something?
Yeah, I'm sitting here and, I work in the dean's office. So we get a lot of different feedback from students regarding grades that they know they didn't deserve. And I'm just hoping that, for everyone, all the students that are on the line, to see how this applies in different situations, especially when you're being evaluated and you think that, in fact, that you are way better than this, but I love your response to first find out, to eventually find out what the evaluator was thinking, what metrics did they use? Because I think it's an understanding how they're thinking that would help you to better navigate your next move. So this is really good. And I also want to mention that I heard, even though this wasn't explicit, but I can hear patience being highlighted. I can also hear having the level of humbleness and humility to understand that, my perspective is my perspective, but there are other perspectives that I do need to consider as I negotiate and as I navigate my way to success. And I must consider those other perspectives as well, because I can't just do it on my own. Because if I had to think about myself, I'm the greatest thing you know, since sliced bread or since Jesus walked the face of the earth. You know, I won't tell you what I tell myself in the mirror. But I do, that's in my house. But once I step outside of my house, I do have to consider these different environments and the perspectives about me in those environments. So this is so good. Thank you so much.
Oh my God, that is so well said. I will tell you, sometimes it's just good to check in just to see how you're being perceived. It's just, and I do check in on my executive presence just to see, did I do that right over the past 3 months? Like, what are people thinking? And sometimes I'm asking my own trusted circle because I know they're going to tell me the truth. And like I said, I try to include a lot of influential folks in my circle because they can hear it directly from other leaders in the firm that are responsible for, you know, our performance, ratings, given opportunities, et cetera. And so sometimes it's good to even just check in, just to see how you're being perceived, to make sure you're doing everything you possibly can to get this right. So another question that typically comes, and by the way, if you are patient and something like goes wrong in a conversation, like if you can handle it and unpack it that day in a candid and respectful way, by all means, go for it. But with Tasha Austin, sometimes it takes a couple of days. So I always got to go back. And so I don't want you to think that you can't sort of work it out that same day. It really is about, you know, is it worth it? And where are your emotions at that point in time? And if they're not where you want them to be, yeah, it's good to go take a break and come back. And people don't mind you taking a break because they'd rather you do that than to leave them with an impression that they never thought they'd see of you and would be very disappointed in you about. Enabling success. I think you guys will get this right away. People have said, you know, how is being executively present, how has that enabled your success? And it's very simple. You show up well. People recognize that. They want to follow you. They want you to lead them. They want you to be a part of other areas, other opportunities. They want to give you opportunities. I've been in meetings where I'm telling you, I had no clue who was sitting in the room, but there were some pretty powerful people in the room. And because of the way I showed up, the next week I got a phone call asking me, could I take the lead or take a leadership role on something else? So it just kind of goes back to you just never know. You just never know. It could be that one moment that someone hears you and they see how you show up, how you assert yourself, how you offer a point of view, and they want you on their team. And so I've taken on many roles just from the way I've shown up in different meetings. Always good to be prepared. That role with the AI Institute, where I was talking about Deloitte has an artificial intelligence institute, and I serve on our global leadership team, that came because I was in a totally different meeting talking about a totally different subject. But there was a partner that was in that meeting that heard me talk about that, went after that meeting to go validate my reputation with some other folks because they thought I would be excellent for a role. But listen to what I said. They went and validated my reputation with some other people. They do this, right? That's why it's always good to understand how you're being perceived. And once they got the green light, they came back. Hey, saw you in the meeting, saw you present this, thought you had a great perspective, want to consider you for this leadership role. Wasn't even thinking about it, just came up. So you do end up getting those opportunities when you show up well. Someone's asked me before around what have I done to inspire others? So like, what's a trait that I have that I try to push forward to other folks? And I think the one that I always refer to is confidence. So for my introverts that are out there, you know, I think I figured this out as far as how to show up and be confident. And I think because I've heard people say I'm an introvert and I don't understand how to show up in a more confident way. I hear it all the time at Deloitte, and I spend a lot of time with folks trying to help them build their confidence. This could be even something as simple as they got to give a presentation. They don't feel comfortable doing it. So I practice and I work with them to do that so that they can be successful with it. I think that's sort of the one trait that I could really push forward and inspire others to take on. And you guys know confidence is a big part of executive presence. Any thoughts there?
I just want to go back to your, you said to like check your emotions. I felt like I've had to do that in corporate America also, especially working with like people under me or people over me, just being the bigger person sometimes. You can't go in and show your emotions all the time. It was a lot of times when I started off in corporate America, I was like, you know what, like he was wrong, she was wrong, this is what you did wrong, but what did I do wrong, right? And I never looked at like, how can I apologize or what could I have done better? So when you're talking about executive presence, just make sure you take your emotions away when you go into a hard situation and figure out like, hey, Walter, like, okay, be the bigger person. It's not all about what they did wrong, but what did you do wrong too? What can you apologize about? You know, because that shows your executive presence right there, because they're not expecting you to say, oh, I did this wrong. I can see this, you know?
Yep, own up. Yep, that is well said. Well said. I would also say, just to talk about that a little bit more, I did a speech about 3 weeks ago for Deloitte, where they asked me to sort of give, it was Women's History Month, as you guys know, in March, and they were amplifying voices of women leaders in the firm, and I got to sit on a panel and be celebrated as one of our women leaders in the firm. And as part of that, they were asking about sort of the best advice that we've been given in our career. And the one advice that I passed on to them was, pick your battles. Everything is not worth fighting. Everything is not worth defending. You got to figure out what makes sense to push forward and sort of address in a candid way versus when you just, this one doesn't matter, like Jay-Z said, just brush it off your shoulders. It's not that big of a deal, right? Like certain people will fight every single thing that comes their way. And that was me too. Like they're wrong. Like you said, Walter, they're wrong. I'm not wrong. This person's wrong. Why did you say that? And the problem is some of that stuff when you wake up the next day was not even worth it. And so you got to pick and choose your battles. And here's the thing, you always, you may want to fight something. Let me say it this way. You may have a battle that's worth fighting, but you need to also realize which ones can you handle versus what can you not. When do you need to go phone a friend? And I've had to run to my trusted circle of advisors, to more influential people to say, this is going on and I'm gonna need your help. I'm gonna need your influence. I'm gonna need your voice to come help me fight this one because this one's worth it, but I can't do it myself. And then of course there's some that I can address on my own, but you gotta pick your battles because if you try to fight everything that comes up, it's gonna be exhausting. And so that was sort of the advice that I left with the audience around, choosing when to go after something versus when to just let it be, because it really is not that big of a deal. People will always do things to us. Life will always seem unfair. Pick the things that matter. And when you do decide to go up against something in a candid way, think about, is it something you can handle or do I go phone a friend to come in and help me?
I think Mr. Horton has a question also. He had his hand up.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry. I'm sorry.
yeah, I do. So I just when you were talking and just also hearing Mr. Kennedy, I work with him a lot. Every time I have a question, concern, I immediately go to him because I want to know more information. I want to become a better leader. And there are plenty of instances where I do want to speak out about something, or I do want to talk about something, or I do want to address something, but sometimes it's better to take a step back. And I remember one incident was there was a recruiting event that I was putting on, and I sent an email out to everyone. I said, hey, you guys have 2 weeks to get back to me. Within 2 weeks, I only got X number of responses. And Mr. Kennedy got on a call. I think it was already after my deadline had passed. He got on a call with everyone and he said, hey, you guys can sign up if you are still interested. So I called him and I'm like, hey, I mean, I gave a deadline. Why are we going back? And, you know, he explained to me, you know, why the decision was made. He explained to me what the, you know, what the benefit was. He also reassured that he understood how I felt and he understood what I said. But, you know, just in working with him, he, you know, thoroughly explains, you know, all of this stuff, and, you know, just a lot of things that you've been discussing. And it's great to have someone that supervises me that, you know, can help me in that way.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And my hope is that all of you feel that you have folks in your corner like that. Because if you don't, it will feel like a struggle. And, you know, I don't think any of us deserve to have to go through that. I think we all deserve sponsors and trusted circles of folks around us to kind of help us navigate life. Because I think I've given you guys a lot of examples where it's clear, even me as a partner at Deloitte, I can't do it alone. Even as a partner, I still can't do it alone. I need other people to help me. So it never stops, which is why that tip that I got years ago about networking, and I was like, I don't have to do that. I don't understand what that is. My mother told me to work hard. So, you know, forget what you guys are saying. Like, that's real. And I'm so glad that at some point I learned to recognize that that was some real feedback, and I took action to go and do things better when it came to building a network. And so, you know, I'm happy to take some other questions. I would just say parting thoughts on this whole topic is, you know, executive presence is really an art and a science. Like I said, I'm not perfect. There are days still where something, you know, was said, or, you know, maybe I didn't show up right. Maybe I wasn't prepared. I had a late night, wasn't prepared for a meeting as I really wanted to be. So my points of view didn't come out as strong as I wanted them to. Maybe I wasn't good with the way I responded, and instead I reacted to a difficult situation. Every once in a while, you know, I got to check myself. So it's not that you won't make a mistake and still end up in certain situations where your executive presence won't come through. What's important is to be accountable for it, recognize it, and figure out how to do it better going forward. And the more you practice it, I think the better off you will be. Like I said, one of the best ways that I focus on achieving and sort of checking on how I want to show up and really monitoring my executive presence and pinpointing what I want to be remembered for, how I want people to perceive me, is I start to monitor other people that I know do it well, and I want to pick up certain traits from them. And everybody may have a different trait. So one woman leader may have a trait around patience, another one may have a trait around the way their point of view come across. There may be a male in the room that can own the room when they walk in. There's a lot of folks that they can influence, and they have strategic ways, and they know how to put the right points on the table to influence others to follow them. So I try to pick the folks that I think can give me everything that I need to continue to build upon my executive presence. That's the best way that I learn and continue to figure out how to do it right. And so I leave you with that, because I don't want you all to think that you can't mess up. You will, which is why, you know, we're human. But the most important thing is to be accountable, recognizing, and figure out how to do it better. So with that, I'm sort of done with my points of views and things that I wanted to bring to the table, but happy to take any other questions if you all have any.
Y'all don't be shy now. If you got questions, ask them. Y'all quiet tonight.
Well, we kind of ask some stuff throughout the night.
I have a question. This is Marquise. I'm sorry, I can't put my camera. I'm at work right now. But I was gonna ask more about your little hardships about being I really wanted to say an introvert, but at your job, like facing that, because I know you said it took you a while to do it, and you still do it. Like you still get encountered with like nervousness, but like I just really can't see like how. I don't know. I'm sorry. It's hard for me to make my question right now.
I think I understand what you're saying. I think
yeah, I'm trying to see like how are you able to like go through it and still like knowing you're gonna have to like still face it. Like it's like really undetermined for me.
So like I said, I lean on a lot of people. I do a lot of practice, especially if I'm leading a meeting, if I'm, you know, sort of an observer in a meeting, and maybe I may be called on to act, you know, to offer a point of view. I try to prepare with trusted circles to make sure that I have what I need to show up right. Like I said, I don't master it, right? There are days when I walk away and I'm like, I could have shown up better. There are speeches that I've given where I'm like, I could have did that speech better. I guarantee we critique ourselves a lot, right? We are the worst at doing that. I guarantee you, when I'm done with this conversation with you all, I'm going to cut Zoom off and say, "Heck, I wish I could have said that to them. Like, why did I forget that?" But I'm sure you guys will be like, "Tasha, that was like the best speech you could have gave. So why are you beating yourself up?" No, I'm just kidding. But I do practice a lot. And that's been the way that I've gotten through it. And here's the thing, the more you end up, doing things over and over again. So the more meetings I go to, the more I'm called on to offer my perspective, the more I'm asked to lead a meeting, the more I'm asked to present, the more practice, the better you get at it. So it's just something that the more you do it, the easier it'll be. Do I still get nervous when I go into meetings that seem uncomfortable because maybe it's a whole different group of leaders that I've never interacted with or engaged with before? Of course I do. But what's important is sometimes if I know the audience, I might go ask again, checking with my trusted circle and say, so-and-so's going to be in a meeting. What's their personality like? Or what types of questions do they typically ask? Or what would they lean on me for? What would I need to bring? So I'm doing that constantly. And it is draining because it takes a lot to prepare. There's some people that are just really good and they can go right in and they're natural at it. That's not me. I'm letting you know I do a lot of preparation behind the scene, but I think if you continue to get those opportunities where you're sort of put out on the stage, virtual and in person, you're sort of put out there. I think the more you practice and the more you check in with people to help coach you through things, I think the better you'll be. Does that kind of help? Because I'm still an introvert and I still get nervous. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Great.
I
Anything
actually
else?
had a question. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I had a question. So it was something you said about like asking for help. That's something that I struggle with because I am so stubborn. Like I will go on YouTube, I'll go on the internet, but you will not catch me asking somebody, "Hey, how do you do this?" Like I will figure it out by myself and not ask for help. Because I feel like I have the inability to be humble. Like, how are you able to know when it's time to ask for help and know like, okay, I think I need somebody else's opinion on this?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I, like you, I definitely research a lot, online just to see if I can get something from there. And if I can't make sense of it and I just don't get it and I can't conceptually understand how to apply it, that's when I know I need some help. But if I get it instantly when I'm doing research and I understand, I understand why they said that, or I understand what they mean, or I understand that point of view. It might even be, I understand that word because I've never heard that vocabulary before. But I figured out, sort of how to go out there, do some research and increase my understanding. It's only when I can't figure it out that I go to other people. I remember when they mentioned this thought of executive presence, I was on the internet like, what does that mean? Like everybody's talking about I need to do it. Even that, right? There's all kinds of different perspectives out there. You got to take what makes sense and, what you're comfortable with doing as far as building traits up to make your executive presence come through. But I've even researched that. But I do agree the internet is obviously a wealth of information. And so it does make it a little bit more easier where you don't necessarily have to ask a lot of questions because you could probably get it from that source. But I would say when you get uncomfortable and you're not really sure how to analyze something, or you're not quite clear on what something meant, no question is a dumb question. I know people say that, and I know some people get fearful and they're not sure how they're going to be judged because a question, they thought maybe people would think they had the answer to, they were embarrassed to ask. I can tell you, I used to be that person that would sit in a room and was scared to offer perspective or scared to ask a question because I just didn't know how people would look at that. And I was like, they're probably gonna think I'm stupid because I asked that question. Now, I don't even care. I'm like, whether they think I'm stupid or not, I'm still asking because that's the only way I'm gonna get an answer. So I try not to worry about that. So, yes, I'm somebody that likes to do work on my own and figure things out on my own, but I've gotten comfortable with not being afraid to go and ask, and whether they think it's dumb or not is their problem. And I think you just have to learn how to build up that confidence and be okay with that, because we still have people that are shy that won't ask because they're not sure how they're going to be judged when something comes out of their mouth. I think I've programmed myself to not care. and, you know, they're going to give me the answer. What they're going to say, no, I'm not going to tell you. Like, they're going to give it to me. What they think about why I asked it is on them, and life goes on. So you know, if the internet doesn't help, that's when I know to ask. And again, you could go to your trusted circle, right? Like I've literally said, I heard someone say this today. I wasn't quite sure what that meant. Tell me like what you think that means, because you probably heard it before. And that's a safe space. So I know they're going to help me get through that. But if it's real time and I need to know right away, and I'm feeling anxious about asking a question, sometimes I'll just do it and just, you know, let them judge whatever way they want.
Thank you. That really helps. Thank you so much.
Anybody else have anything?
Yeah, I have a question. I wanted to know, like, how do you face your obstacles at work? Like, I know you were saying you prepare a lot and practice, but is there anything else?
Is there anything else? That's probably it. Now, I will tell you, having a support system at home does help. My husband, I vent to a lot about everything that went wrong with work. And so he's heard it all. But he is a good listener, and he is a good source of good feedback on how I really should view things. I had an issue last week with something that came up, and I remember talking to him about it, and it bothered me the whole weekend. And he really worked through that with me. And today I showed up just fine at work, but it really did bother me over the weekend. And so I would say sometimes my support extends even within my own home, right? Where maybe, you know, I'm not leaning on my trusted circle of external and internal advisors. Sometimes the support system that I have at home matters a lot, and they help me a lot. As far as how do I sort of get through things and navigate things. I practice a lot of stuff with my husband. Like I told him I had to do the speech today. Last night at like 10:30, he's like, yes, I know you're talking to Morgan State. Like, what are you going to talk about? And I was like, dude, I'm tired. I really don't feel like going through the outline of what I'm going to say. But I walked him through it because he was interested, which was great. And he was like, yeah, that sounds good. Like, I think that would resonate with them. So it's little things like that that helps me as well. And you don't even think about it, right? Like you tend to run to the folks at work that you trust that will help you. But my husband actually is a good person as well for me to lean on. Hopefully that helped, but I would say that's another tip.
Okay, thank you.
Hi.
Go
Hi.
ahead.
Oh wait, hold on. Somebody else want to go?
No, I was saying these are great questions. Go ahead, Dalen.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, so I was just saying, hi, I'm Dalen Robertson. I'm a sophomore CS major. I was interested in Deloitte a while back, like on the software engineering side. Do you know, do you know anything really about like how, I guess, working on the technical side is really on Deloitte, or have you worked with anybody technical based there to the point where it like, I guess you would be able to kind of get a grasp of how it is working there, like on the technical side?
So you're asking like, just have I done technical type things in the firm, or like, what does it mean to have a background in technology, and how does that show up in the organization?
I guess just like, even just like, if you have even done work with like technology based, or like been exposed to it in a way, like even been around like that technical side of like the engineering part of like the engineering employees and stuff. I was asking, I don't know if you have gotten like, have you got a sense of like what, like how it is working there, I guess, on the engineering side? And if so, like, do you mind talking a bit about it too? I was interested.
Yeah, got you. I understand what you're asking. So, you know, early on in my career, I did a lot of software development. I did a lot of computer programming. And we had a lot of folks that came in with an engineering background that was in that same space. And so I would say there's certainly a culture. We have a whole sort of, we call it the technologists, like we have a whole group of folks that focus on technology, focus on delivering different types of technologies and solutions to our clients. And I would say that's important when you think about all the emerging technologies that are happening today, right? When you think about artificial intelligence, that certainly is aligning with our engineers, our computer science, our mathematicians, right, are in that space. And that's pretty big. And we have a lot of people that are very interested in that topic, which is great, right? Because it's great for morale, it's great for the number of opportunities that we get to go out and serve our clients in this space. I told you about our Artificial Intelligence Institute. So lots of folks coming in with a technology background to kind of even help the firm prepare, on the capabilities that they'll want to take and deliver into the client space. So on a day-to-day basis, maybe I'm not as involved in the sort of the details, right? Given where I sit in the firm, but at one point, I certainly was in that space. And I think, its culture is pretty much the same, probably even on a campus grounds where, maybe you guys converse and talk about different, tools and programming things, software, development type topics. We do the same thing in the firm. We try to build communities of practice. And so you may find a community of practice of folks that are all analytics or software engineers. The good thing that I like about the way we show up at Deloitte is we try to bring diverse teams into our client space. That may mean a technologist, that might mean someone with a math background, that might mean a CPA, that might mean someone with a business background, someone in supply chain. Because typically when our clients are looking for a solution, it's not one person with a one skill set that has it. We bring a diverse team to the table to help deliver the breadth of the firm's capabilities. And so we do show up that way as well, where you may be on a team with other folks that have other backgrounds and experiences. But as you all know, diverse teams equate to success, right, in different spaces. And so we try not to just focus on bringing sort of one like skill into our client space. And so I hope that helps. That's typically how we might show up. And then we have a lot of people that do things inside of the firm. Maybe they're not client facing, but they're building like artificial intelligence and software type programs for us to use to sort of keep business running day to day. So we have folks that actually do things more internal facing in the firm to sort of help Deloitte run its business, while we have others that are sort of in a client space, sort of helping them solve their issues with that type of skill. Does that help?
Yeah, no, definitely. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
What else do you guys have for Ms. Austin?
Tasha, this is Lene. I am pinging you over a question, but wanted to know, as an HBCU alum, myself is also as an HBCU alum, and I know you lead DE&I efforts. Are there any specific notes towards our HBCU students that you'd like to impart before we end this evening that you haven't already shared?
Yeah. So you're asking about like maybe what things I would sort of leave with like maybe the focus on HBCUs and the firm at large, and some things that I may share with this group. Is that what you're referring to, Lene? Or
yes.
Something? So like, what are we doing in the DEI fields around all things HBCUs?
Correct. Because when I first came in, I didn't have a lot of HBCU peers. I just really didn't. And I know we definitely made strides in that area, but I didn't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about what we've come to, programs or things, efforts and things like that.
Yes, absolutely. And Clayton knows this very well. So we've even talked to Clayton, for example, about what are some strategic ways we can continue to engage with HBCUs. And I think what Lene is hitting on is that, we just didn't do a lot at one point. And, we admit that. But thankfully, we have a lot of alumni at Deloitte that are amplifying their voices, saying we need to do more. And my thought has always been, it has to be more than just recruiting. It's not enough to just go take students from schools. We need to invest in the schools. We need to invest in the programs at the schools. And we have a wealth of knowledge at Deloitte, so why not figure out how to bring that into the classrooms? One of the best things I like about being a college professor is the fact that I get to bring in industry expertise, my background in helping my clients solve some of their most complex issues, and I get to help you all understand and connect the dots around why, this computer science course, or why this, data analytics course, or why this business course, like why do these things matter? How do your background and experiences in your college studies solve some of the most complex issues in industry? So I like to connect the dots so that you think, oh, I understand now why I got to take that math class. So I understand why that concept helps. And so we need to do that more, because I'm sure your college professors are great, but I'm sure they would welcome the opportunity to bring in guest speakers from companies like Deloitte and others that have experience in things just like artificial intelligence and fluency. What does it mean to be fluent in AI? Why does it have to sound so complicated? Can an organization come in and teach it to my students? And so we talked to Clayton about how do we team better and do things like that? How do we build out curriculums to enhance them? How do we think about sort of hot topics in the public domain today and bring those things back into the classroom so that you're enhancing the different types of programs you're pushing to students, whether that's a data science program or AI program, whatever that may be. So that's one way we've been trying to focus on being more strategic in the way we engage with schools. We've also said, hey, we should be mentoring the students a lot more. How great would it be for Lene, alumni of Morgan State, in the computer science field, doing well? She's a top performer at Deloitte. How great would it be to pair her with one of you all? So we've been talking about how do we create more mentoring opportunities where the students get paired with Deloitte professionals, and we cover all things like soft skills. What does it mean to navigate corporate America? What are the tips and tricks you need to understand from day one walking into a big firm like Deloitte? How do you use your skills successfully in the space? Resume building, mock interviews. Like, we should be mentoring more, doing this over and over again for many HBCUs. And we've talked about even that with Clayton and other leaders across the HBCU community around how we do that better. So that's just another example. I hope that makes sense, because I am really trying to push the idea that it's not enough to just come and recruit you guys and say, okay, thanks, bye-bye. Like, that doesn't work. We have to invest, and we have to invest differently.
Awesome. And team, that's the truth. Tasha has been literally in communication with me over the last couple of weeks. So stay tuned. That is coming really soon to Morgan State University. Just to kind of touch on another angle from Lene's question, you're a two-time HBCU grad. Yeah, you got your MBA at Berkeley, you know, and I'm not sure how I missed that either. But I just wanted to ask, coming from an HBCU specifically, what is one thing that you can say through your experiences, two-time grad from North Carolina, what's one thing that has deposited in you that has helped to propel your success?
From the experience in the HBCU, one is probably more personal, and that kind of goes back to me all of a sudden having to grow up really fast and having a lot of people around to support me, to let me know that I could navigate anything. And so always say, I'm very resilient. And I learned that in the HBCU community. And I did that trying to navigate being a mother and a student and graduating on time and then going right back into the master's program. But that came because I had a lot of people in the HBCU space, from my deans to my, to the faculty, et cetera, that supported me, didn't judge me because I had a baby. They supported me and helped me work my way through college. And I think that's made me one of the most resilient people in the firm today. I think the other thing is I'm very passionate about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I've seen the power of the talent that comes out of the HBCU space. And knowing that I'm one of them, coming from a STEM background, walking into a big firm like Deloitte, knowing, sort of the at-risk things that I come from an underserved community, but look how great of a success story that I have. There's so many more students like that in the HBCU space. We need to amplify that and show that. And I've tried to be confident with everything that I've learned from the HBCU community about showing up and recognizing that you belong there too. Like, I've literally had people say, you belong there too, go apply for Deloitte. It's that type of feedback and empowerment that's come from leaders, even like you, Clayton. I hear you talk about how great the students are. I remember you being at the Artificial Intelligence Forum, amplifying the great talent, not being afraid to talk to industry leaders about what you needed. It's when you have professors and deans and faculty that don't mind sort of putting that out there, letting people know she belongs there too, he belongs there too, that really makes a big difference. And I was fortunate to have a lot of math professors that believed in me and that sort of pushed me into corporate America and never doubted that I wouldn't be successful. So I hope that answers the question as well.
We're gonna make a shirt. Hashtag you belong there too.
That's what they tell me, you belong there.
That was powerful. That was powerful, because I think that a lot of times students feel like their experience at HBCUs, whether it's academically or other, is somewhat inferior to other schools. And I'll be direct. I've heard that come up over and over again, and it's simply not true. It is simply not true. You belong there too. I love it. Walter, back to you, sir.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Thank you so much, Miss Austin. If I can get a few of you to come off mute and just say thank you and appreciate Miss Austin tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Miss Austin, this has been wonderful. Some takeaways that I've gotten is communicating with confidence and clarity. That helps us even as mentors and student leaders here at Morgan State Universities when we're, communicating with our professors or communicating with deans of students or, presidents and going out into the world. We have a lot of graduating seniors on here that are, about to go out into the world. So communicating with confidence and clarity, that's good. The ability to inspire others, that's what we do all the time as mentors in B.E.A.R.S. We inspire our mentees. I'm a coordinator. I try to inspire the mentors. Mr. Lewis inspires me as my supervisor. And it's funny because we're in April where we're talking about authentic relationships. So inspiring others is wonderful. Be a leader that others want to follow. I don't know how many times Mr. Lewis tells us that. Be the leader that you want others to follow, and then get comfortable with being uncomfortable. That thing was big. I think a lot of times, and we're in this space right now with COVID-19 and being virtual, that our student leaders have to be they're uncomfortable with being with virtual. And our freshman students that are on here, they've done their whole freshman year online. That's never been heard of besides this year. So I know they're uncomfortable, but they're getting comfortable with doing certain things. But hopefully when we get to a sense of normalcy, we'll be back to face to face. And maybe we can have you face to face with us back on Morgan State's campus, where you can come visit and spend the day with us and our students. That would be great. But we students, let's go out there and grow the future and lead the world with executive presence. That's the best thing that we can do. Again, Miss Austin, I appreciate you. I've learned a lot. It took me down memory lane when I was in corporate America. So I'm continuing to use the stuff that instilled me in corporate America, even in this position in higher ed, and helping my student leaders to see how I think differently and why I think differently and why I do certain things the way I do certain things. So thank you again for just reassuring us about our executive presence.
All good. Thanks,
Yes,
everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you again.
Yes, we will send expect a little thank you packet from